So Tim and Chris have always been key to the success of the overall quality of the Rare games. But at the same time, you know, they have done that from kind of an advisory role. I mean, I've always respected that about them. The teams at Rare are extremely independent. And then at certain times during the development, Tim and Chris would just dive in and give their input. And over the years, a couple of the guys there, really the kind of all the lead staff, learned very well from what Tim and Chris had done. And, you know, why were the games that they were touching so special and so magic? Over the last, I'd say, 2 years, 3 or 4 of the individuals specifically, including Mark Betteridge and Greg Males, have taken on more and more of that role. And so when Tim and Chris decided that they wanted to leave, it's kind of they're kind of retiring, thinking about what they want to do. Maybe they go do something small. They've worked a long, long time. I mean, these guys started when they were 16 and 17 years old. When I used to go over there a lot when I worked for Nintendo for, you know, more than just the visit. It would be like, I'm going to go for 2 weeks and we'd work. And it was, you go to work at 9, you get off at 2, you go to work at 9, you get off at 2, you're in on Saturday. Sunday is easy day, you know, come in at 10, leave at 3. And that's the way they built their games. I mean, their work ethic was insane. Interesting side story was that Tim and Chris had actually retired before Nintendo started working with them. And one of the things Tim wanted to do was to, like, do a major ocean voyage as a sailor. So he went off and got his sailor certificate, but, you know, that wasn't good enough. He wanted to build a sailboat, design it himself. And again, you have to remember they did 100 and something NES games. So they were doing just fine before they started working with Nintendo. So what's Tim do to design this sailboat? Well, he just goes and buys the best SGI machine and a copy of Power Animator. So, you know, $300,000 so he can design a sailboat. So he starts working on his sailboat. And then he realized, you know, he talked to a couple of the engineers and artists, and he's like, maybe we could export this, color reduce it, and build them into sprites. And that's what got him interested about the industry again. You know, and so in some ways I think that's Tim and Chris are there again, right? It's like, it's been a long, long time again since their last retirement. Time to relax. I think that's really cool. And kind of like working with Howard and Mr. Arakawa, it was a great honor to work over the years with Tim and Chris. They're just brilliant. They're good friends of mine. I respect what they've done to the industry as a whole, what they did for Rare as a company, what they did for Microsoft, you know, while they worked for us, and I wish them the best of luck. At the same time, you know, with Mark and Simon and Greg and Lee Schuneman, Lee Musgrave, and all the other guys that are working at Rare now running the show, I have no concern. I mean, I couldn't really put it any other way. I mean, the stuff they're doing there is awesome. It will always be awesome. And, you know, a lot of that is the legacy of Tim and Chris, but a lot of it, of course, is these people that have worked there for 10, 15, many of these people are from early on when Ultimate Play the Game started in the game industry. So I'm old, but I'm still really young. I mean, I think someday they're going to have to, like, come and carry me away when I can't walk and my hands no longer work. So I plan on being in the industry as long as the industry will have me. You know, I just love it. Where I see the industry going over the next, 5 years, 10 years, I think you can kind of see the trajectory, but at the same time, wild things have happened in the last 5 or 6 years, and wild things that can't be predicted today will happen over the next 5 or 6 years. I think you can kind of see, with the beginnings of what's going on in Xbox Live, you can project that into unbelievable community contribution, whether it's user-generated content or just buildings of communities, people that like to hang together, not necessarily at a pub after work or out at a restaurant on the weekend. They just want to be able to talk to their friends that maybe have moved across the world. And it's a convenient way to do it over a game of whether it's Crackdown co-op or, you know, a game of Halo with your buddies, or maybe it's, you know, Uno, or maybe it's just chatting in the Dash. I mean, I've been surprised how much work I've done in the last year and a half because of chat in the Dash. You know, like I'm playing one game, Dennis Dyack, another long-term friend that we're working with. He's on live a lot. And I talk to him, you know, obviously regular, you know, during business hours, so to speak. But a lot of times our best conversations are, I see him online, he's playing something one player or a game that we can join together in, and we just are in this nice meandering discussion over whether it's work or games or whatever, and it's awesome. So here's a friend that's 3,000 miles away, and we're super close because of Xbox Live. You know, and I can see that, again, projected forward to doing some very interesting things. As far as technology goes, hardware is not going to stop getting more powerful. It's I think more and more as you go into the future, whether it's going to be ridiculously massive multiplayer, multiprocessing. Do I have 10,000 CPUs someday? Who knows? What's clear is that the hardware is not going to get more simplistic to use. Tools are going to be the biggest thing that drive the industry forward. I mean, we're sitting here in the XNA lobby bar, and XNA, the driving idea behind XNA is brilliant, and it's necessary. We have to get to the point where game development isn't always about let's start from scratch. Next game, let's start from scratch. Next game, let's start from scratch. And I think most developers understand this today, and they're building up awesome tool sets. And we want to help with that and offer more tools, whether it's for online play or for game development or asset creation or asset management or debug or project scheduling. Or Microsoft's been in this part of the business for a long time, and I think the lead is substantial and growing. And what I love about it isn't Microsoft's role or Microsoft's benefit. It's the benefit to the industry that Microsoft can offer through all these tools and technologies to help people make better games easier, faster, cheaper, at least on the relative curve of if I have a game system 5 or 10 years from now that's 10,000 times more powerful and can hold 1 million times the assets, we have to be able to scale game development in a way to do that in an educated way. And we're here to make sure that we whittle away at that giant mountain. As far as game players, the thing I love about the future is more and more people getting into games. I kind of laugh looking back at the 80s when people would look at me, you still play games, but you're old. And it's like, gamers don't stop playing games. It's like, gaming as an entertainment form, I think you might lapse in and out of it as you get older, but once you fall in love with games, you play games. And so the interesting thing that I also see happening as we go into the future is more and more and more of the population just taking video games as it's just a form of entertainment. It's like going to the movies, it's like reading a book. And of course all my friends and neighbors do this, and of course my mother does it, and of course my 3-year-old does it, and that's brilliant. Again, I love the industry, I love gaming, and I love seeing whether it's grandma playing Wii bowling, or it's my wife playing poker on Xbox Live, or anything. If it's a game and it can bring people into the industry and into this entertainment form that I love so much, then it's all good.